How is this working?
Yeah, it's working. Hey,
Oh, it is working.
yeah, I
I
didn't
was
know. I
I was
wasn't
just
sure what we were meant to
looking at
do.
everyone's photos and wondering if it was live or not.
Yeah, no, it's definitely live. I think we're just meant to talk and just do a quick
Hmm.
2 minute download of our the reason why we're at this conference, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, where are you dialing in for, Shishir?
I'm
Hi. Hello, everyone. Sorry, having some technical issues trying to get things on YouTube working, but I think it's working now, hopefully. Try to make my screen a bit bigger over there. Hi, so good to see everyone. Hi, good. Hi again, Mary Jean. Was anyone else in? Yes, I'm glad you're back. Was anyone else in Amber's pronunciation class today? I guess Amber and my pronunciation class. We did some co-teaching today. That was really fun. It's a really good class. The pronunciation workshop. You were there as well? Wonderful. Oh, that's great. We've decided Thursdays are kind of pronunciation day or speaking day. So you can, in the future, go from that class and then you have about a half-hour break and then come to TOEFL speaking. So it's pretty good, pretty great, although long day. It's good, very good. Right, hi, I see YouTube chat is working. That's wonderful. Had lots of issues with that for quite a long time. It seems to be good now. All right, so again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Bailey. I'm one of the expert tutors here at E2 Language and over at E2 School as well. So welcome to today's TOEFL speaking class. So for speaking, there are two main sections, the independent speaking task and the integrated speaking tasks. So today we're going to go over the integrated task 4, which is to summarize a lecture. And I believe this is the first time we are ever doing this class. So like pronunciation earlier, that was the first time. And I believe today this is brand new content as well. So that's exciting. We're really trying to build things up and add a lot more information. So to summarize the lecture, you're asked to listen to a lecture on an academic topic, and the lecture usually speaks for somewhere between 90 to 120 seconds. And then you need to summarize the information from the lecture. You have 1 minute to speak to do your summary. So for today's class, you'll want a pen and paper to make notes, and you'll want some kind of recording app to record your answers. I use voice memos. It's just a free app on my phone, and it's just for you, so you can listen to yourself and self-assess later. So if you don't have one, that's fine, but it really is a good tool to use to record and listen back and see how you've done. Okay, so the outline for today, again, we're focusing just on speaking task 4, which is to summarize a lecture. We'll start with a warm-up, and if you weren't in pronunciation earlier, then we can do some speaking warm-ups. Then we'll look at the appearance, so that's just what it looks like on your screen on testing day. We'll go through the method that we recommend for answering the speaking task 4. We'll look at how speaking task 4 is scored, or how all the speaking tasks are scored. We'll have times for practice, so you can try some for yourself. And then I'll share with you some additional resources. Okay, so let's start with those warm-ups. So let's talk about the importance of electricity. So in the chat, read these questions and think of some answers. Go ahead and put some answers in the chat, and then we'll discuss them a bit together. Okay, so before electricity was discovered, how would that have affected people's daily routine? Life was easier after electricity? I sure think so. It was difficult before. People had to put in more effort to do everyday things. I know it would depend on where you live, but I can't help but think how cold it would be. I need heat, a heater. Also, we've just done the time change, so it gets dark really early. It's only 5 o'clock here and the sun's already starting to go down. What do you do after the sun goes down that early? You definitely, well, most people wouldn't be working when it's pitch black outside. So you'd have to start work earlier in the morning and end work earlier. They still did have forms of light. Like you said, they had torches and things like that, fire. Yeah, lanterns, things like that were used before. So there was some light. It wasn't all just completely dark, but yeah, it'd be hard to go outside or do much outside because it's so dark. And you can carry a lantern, but that doesn't really light everything up. So how were those devices like torches and lanterns, how were they different to our modern appliances? Yeah, we use things like tube lights and LEDs. And we can control things with a switch. Yeah, that's pretty neat. We don't have to use fire. We can. Sometimes lighting a fire in the fireplace is very nice. Yeah, we can use Alexa and say, hey, Alexa, turn on the lights. Obviously, I don't have that equipped in here. That would have done weird things. We can talk to a robot though, right? We can talk to a robot to turn on the lights, whereas before we had to make fire, carry it around. So how did life change after electricity was discovered? It was easier? Yeah. How so? In what ways? Ooh, that's a good one. It's easier to preserve our food. We just pop it in the refrigerator. Really started a revolution. We can stay out late at night. Can you think of anything negative? With electricity, you can turn everything on and off very easily. Absolutely. We became lazy. Yeah. I don't know if it's just because of electricity, but I guess all of the things that electricity brought with it made us a bit lazier. But warmer. I'll take being warmer. Yeah. We don't really do well to take care of nature. Sometimes we care more about how to get things warm or use light rather than what that takes away from nature. And they had more time to take care of nature, yeah. What about work? So I think with work, because it's always bright out, yeah, it's easier to work and we can work from everywhere, which is good, but maybe we're expected to work longer hours. We're expected to work late into the night because we can see, because we can. So I think it's mostly very good things, but maybe not everything. We can talk to our relatives who live overseas or anywhere. We can work from home, which I love working from home, but not everyone does. Great. Hi. See new people joining on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Well, those are great answers. So let's move on to the appearance. So what you'll see on your screen on test day, and speaking is usually pretty similar, looks similar. So there's always going to be an image related to the lecture, and the audio will play in the background. After that, then you'll see the question prompt, and an audio recording of the question prompt will also be played. So the question is read aloud. And then you also see the time. So once the question has been read aloud, a timer will start counting down from 20 seconds, which is how long you have to prepare. And it will also show your recording time. So once those 20 seconds are up, it will start counting down to 60 seconds, and that's how long you have to record your answer. So let's look at the method. So for the task 4, we have a 4-step method. So first you want to listen to the lecture and take very thorough notes, as thorough as possible. Then you want to read the question prompt, then prepare your response, and finally present. So let's break this down step by step. First step, we're going to listen to the lecture and take notes. So we want to point out the main topic, then listen for and give examples and details. So generally, but not always, there's about 2 to 3 main examples and some corresponding details. And the main topic usually comes towards the beginning, but it might take you till the end to really figure out what it is. So use this note-taking template. Let's listen and take notes now.
Prior to the 20th century, elevators were fairly primitive and were primarily used to move goods or grain to storage areas above street level. Their function and design changed quickly in the early years of the 20th century, and they had 2 surprising impacts. Firstly, they changed our city landscapes, and secondly, there was an unexpected social impact. You may never have considered the impact of elevators on city landscapes. Did you know, for example, that prior to the introduction of elevators to commercial and residential buildings, these buildings were generally limited to 5 floors? Elevators enabled higher buildings and eventually skyscrapers. Another surprising impact of elevators is their impact on social stratification. Prior to the use of elevators in residential buildings, wealthy people lived on lower floors, while the poor lived on the higher floors, which meant that they had to walk up many stairs to reach their homes. As elevators became more commonplace, buildings became taller and the upper floors became accessible. Upper floors had views, and the wealthy began moving up, while the poor moved.
Okay, so what did you put as the topic or some of those examples and details? Function of elevators. Okay, so I'll show you my notes and then we can compare them to your own. So the topic, I put the impact of elevators. So an example was city landscapes. Before elevators, buildings were limited to only 5 floors. So with elevators, they now had higher buildings because who really wants to walk more than 5 floors? And the other example is social stratification. So before elevators, the wealthy lived on lower floors and the poor lived on higher floors because there was more stairs, it was more work, the more they had to go. So that's very interesting because now it's changed. Since elevators have been incorporated, the upper floors are usually the wealthier people because they have better views, usually bigger spaces. That's where the penthouse usually is. So it's really changed things. Okay, so now we want to read the question prompt. Using points and examples from the lecture, explain the 2 changes that resulted from the use of elevators in our commercial and residential buildings. Okay, so we want to ask yourself questions as you structure your response. So this is the structure that we recommend. So start with the main topic. What is the main topic? And can you explain it in simple words? Then make a connection. So what is the professor trying to do? Are they giving different perspectives, examples? What is it? What is their aim? What is the point of the lecture? What are they doing? Then you want to give both examples. So how does this example relate to the main topic? And can we give some details about it? And we want to do that for both examples. And we want to make sure not only that we mention both examples and some details, but that those examples are different from each other. So 2 examples, 2 different ideas. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are using your notes. Remember, you can't listen to it again. So this is why your notes are so important, because you can refer to your notes. Also, remember, this is a really good guide, but you do need to be flexible. Sometimes there might be 3 examples, or they could be points instead of examples. So let's listen to this sample answer. Our 4th step is to present. So read along with the transcript and let's listen as well.
The lecturer was discussing elevators in the 20th century. She talked about how before that time they had been mainly used to move goods, but their function changed to moving people between floors in buildings. Next, she mentioned that before elevators were used in commercial and residential buildings, the height of buildings was limited to a height of just 5 stories. The elevator enabled buildings to get taller, and this changed the way that our cities looked. Then she talked about how elevators also changed the way people live in buildings. She said that before there were elevators in residential buildings, rich people lived on the lower floors while poor people lived on the upper floors. However, when elevators enabled buildings to get higher and enabled easy access to upper floors, wealthy people began to be more attracted to the higher floors.
Okay, what do you think about that response? How was it? Good, bad, so-so? Good? I would say so. Why was it good? What made it a good response? It was simple, but it covered all of the points. Yeah, it doesn't need to be overly complicated. It's much more important that it covers all of the points. All right, let's go through the scoring so we can talk more about why it was a good response and some things that you can emulate. So this is the official TOEFL scoring guide. I'm sure you've seen it before. And it is available on the TOEFL website if you don't have it, and it is good to have. However, it's very lengthy. There's lots of technical language, and sometimes I find it very complicated and hard to understand. So we used a simplified guide. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. So, what delivery score would you give our sample answer? Read through these and let me know in the chat what score 1 through 4 you would give for delivery. Okay, so I'm mostly seeing 4s, and yes, I agree, but why? The why is very important here. You didn't have a lot of awkward pauses or too many of those where we're searching for language or words. And he was easy to understand all throughout. So now language use. And what if we stammer when we start speaking? A little bit of stammering is fine. I trip over my words all the time. You just need to either correct yourself or move on, but don't get caught up in it. If you start overthinking and worrying about your stammering or tripping over words, then you'll just keep doing it and worrying about it more. So just move on, just keep going. And that's really the point, is to keep speaking for a minute. You want to do all the points and talk about what you need to talk about without worrying too much about, missing or skipping over a word or stammering or things like that. So just keep going. That's always my biggest advice. Okay, so now for language use, 1 through 4 here. Okay, mostly seeing 4s, a 3 in there as well. So again, I would say 4 out of 4, but let's look at why. So effective use of grammar. If we look at the transcript, you'll see that there really aren't any major grammatical errors. And he uses the different tenses accurately. This can be a very, very difficult thing to do. If we're talking about the past, we need to use past tense, present, present, but it is tricky. It's hard to learn. So she talked, they had been, mainly to move. The height of buildings was limited. Our cities looked, the way people live. There were elevators. However, when elevators enabled buildings, wealthy people began to be. It's a very good use of tenses there. There's also a variety of sentence structures. So the first sentence is quite short, succinct, to the point. The lecture was discussing elevators in the 20th century. Done. Then the next one, that's a compound sentence. This one, compound complex. Again, another just simple sentence. That one I think is simple as well, and another compound complex. So we've used a variety of sentence structures. And he used lots of collocations and some uncommon words. And more importantly than using uncommon words, so don't just try to only use synonyms. We see this a bit more in writing than in speaking, but sometimes we see people that don't want to use a simple word. So you're clearly Googling or using a thesaurus or finding a synonym for a word that doesn't necessarily make sense or fit. And honestly, it's better to use simple language accurately than try to use complex language and use it inaccurately. So here he says 20th century, to move goods, commercial and residential buildings, enabled, that's a great word if we're using it correctly, and easy access to upper floors. We did well there. It's a variety of collocations and uncommon words. So now look at topic development. Again, read through all of these, and what score would you give him? Okay, again, seeing lots of 4s. I agree, absolutely. But why? The clear progression of ideas with relevant information. So used a lot of linking words. These are really great to use. They help with grammar and vocabulary, but more so, they logically organize our ideas. They help us move from one idea to the next. So he starts with the lecturer was discussing. She talked about how before that time, but, and then when he moves on to the next topic, next she mentions that the elevator enabled, and then the next example, then she talked about how she said that, and however, and next, those are good ones to use. And words, linking words are great in your writing as well. Also includes appropriate details and connections between ideas. Absolutely. He explains the main topic, connects it to the lecture, and gives the 2 examples. So the main topic, the lecture was discussing elevators in the 20th century. Even if you said the lecture was discussing elevators or the history of elevators, what did I see? The evolution of elevators, all of those, excellent. Connects it to the lecture. She talked about how before that time, they've been used mainly to move goods, but their function changed to moving people between floors and buildings. Okay, so we've connected it. Here's the main topic. This is what she generally discussed. in the first example of this change. Next, she mentioned that before elevators were used in commercial and residential buildings, the height of buildings was limited to a height of just 5 stories. The elevator enabled buildings to get taller, and this changed the way our cities looked. Example 2. Then she talked about how elevators also changed the way people live in buildings. She said that before there were elevators in residential buildings, rich people lived on the lower floors, while the poor people lived on the upper floors. However, when elevators enabled buildings to get higher and enabled easy access to upper floors, wealthy people began to be more attracted to the higher floors. So definitely went through, and that is a great way to know if we did topic development. We followed our structure, explain the main topic, connect to the lecture, and give our examples with details. Okay, so a really good answer will tick all of these boxes. For delivery, it will be well-paced with fluid speech, using accurate pronunciation and intonation. And yes, if you could definitely replace enabled to made. For language use, you'll use grammar effectively, and you can have minor errors. As you've heard, I trip over my words. That's fine, although I guess tripping over words is more delivery. Language use would be misusing a word, maybe one word. And topic development, a clear progression of ideas with relevant information, and including those appropriate details and connections between ideas, really using that structure we recommend. So a good answer will also avoid these errors or pitfalls. For delivery, if you have consistent pronunciation difficulties with fragmented speech and frequent pauses, that's going to be quite low scoring. Remember, consistent pronunciation difficulties with fragmented speech. So it's not just tripping over a word here or there. That's fine. This is consistent issues all the way through. Language use, if your grammar and vocabulary are severely limited and don't allow you to clearly express what you're trying to say, that will be low scoring. And topic development, if you haven't really interpreted what they said, you haven't provided relevant content, and your ideas are inaccurate, or you've just said one small part over and over again, that will be quite low scoring as well. Right, so now it is time for practice. You can try. So remember, the first step is to listen and take notes. We can tell by the picture that it's a lecture. There's only one person speaking there. So again, we divide our notes into main idea and details, and we want to make sure we make note of the overall main topic as well. Okay, so go ahead and listen and make your notes now.
Leonardo da Vinci is best known for his artistic achievements, most notably his painting called the Mona Lisa. He was also a man of science, and somewhat surprisingly, he was the first person to create a scale map of a city. And that's what we'll look at in this lecture, major changes in map making. Essentially, we can think of maps as having two phases, pre-Da Vinci and post-Da Vinci. The essential characteristics of maps prior to Leonardo da Vinci were that they were largely based on pictures and were inconsistently drawn. Some areas were disproportionately large, while other areas were too small in comparison. Maps at the time were not oriented according to compass points. In many cases, they were works of art first, and reference documents second. This changed in 1499, when Da Vinci produced a map of the Italian city of Imola. Da Vinci's innovation was that the map was drawn with elements in the correct proportion. Roads and buildings were the right size in comparison. The map was also oriented to the north. The map was a valuable tool for the local army in terms of being able to defend their city. Within 50 years of the map being produced, similar maps were being produced in other parts of Europe.
Using points and examples from the lecture, explain the differences between maps before and after Leonardo da Vinci created a map of the city of Imola. So you have 30 seconds to prepare for this one, and then I'll let you know when the response time begins. So start your preparation time now. Begin your response now. Okay, let's listen to a sample response. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Oh no. Sorry. Okay, let's listen to a sample and compare it to your own.
The lecture is about how Leonardo da Vinci's work led to major changes in map making. It discusses features of maps in the period before and after da Vinci drew a map of the city of Imola in Italy. Before that, maps were not consistent. Some features were drawn too big and others too small. Sizes were often wrong and compass points were not used. The maps were often beautiful, but they were not accurate. An important change that can be seen in Da Vinci's Italian map is that he drew elements of the city in the right proportion. Roads and buildings were shown to be the right size in relation to each other. Also, the map showed where north was. The new conception of a map made it a valuable tool for armies. Within 50 years, Da Vinci's style of map was becoming more common.
Hey, what do you think about that response? It was good. Yeah, I think it was really good. So she was very easy to understand. She spoke well, fluently. No major grammatical issues, anything like that. And she followed the structure. The lecture is about, it discusses, and then the points. So before that, this is what they did. And the new version. Oh, wait. So before that, yep, new version showing north. She also summed it up quite nicely too. You don't have to do a summary or anything like that, but she did kind of sum it up, or that's just the last. It's a nice final sentence there. Within 50 years, Da Vinci's style was becoming more common. Okay, so now take 2 minutes. Take a minute to listen back to your own recording and then give yourself a score. So remember, each of these can have a different score. Maybe your delivery was a bit choppy and hard to kind of get out, but you used grammar effectively and did quite well with topic development. So it could be any order, any of those, but go ahead, listen back to yourself and put what you would score yourself in the chat. Hey, how do you think you did? How do you feel you did? So I find that you guys are all often hard on yourselves. I see a 2 for delivery, and obviously I haven't heard you, but that would mean speech is difficult to understand, quite choppy, unclear pronunciation, lots of pauses. So I bet that it's a bit higher. You can tell, maybe, but I do often see that people are hard on themselves. So you want to be honest with yourself, but you don't want to be too hard on yourself. And it is also good. It's good to know what to work on, because sometimes I feel that people have great topic development, but maybe their language use isn't so good. Or it could be the opposite. They've used great language, but they didn't really follow that structure. And so they didn't get very far with their ideas. So that can definitely be the case. Yes, practice makes perfect. Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to share with you some additional resources. So make sure you're working on your speaking skills outside of class. So you can go to the course and practice the integrated speaking exercises. We have some exercises there too. I have been really recommending TED Talks lately. So TED Talks, there are a variety of TED Talks. So you can pick something that you find interesting, a topic you find interesting, which really helps make learning easier, more fun, if it's something that you are actually interested in. So TED Talks are like podcasts, so you can listen to them, but they also have transcripts. So you can read along see, I trip over my words all the time. You can read the transcripts out loud, and you can copy the speaker's speed, intonation, tone, their accent. All of those things will help to improve your fluency. And you can pause as you're going and re-say the same sentence over and over again if you're struggling with it. So it does three of the 4 main skills we need for the test. So that helps your listening, your reading, and your speaking. So definitely make use of that. You've gone and done some TED Talks on their YouTube. Excellent. It really is a good feature. Also going over to E2 School, we do some practice of things like that where we listen to and read a sentence at the same time, and we take turns and practice it aloud. So that's really helpful. And also going to YouTube, to the E2 TOEFL channel and the E2 School channel. There are a lot of things over there to help with pronunciation and speaking. So I would also like to share with you another screen. Oops. Sorry, technology today. You haven't visited our YouTube yet? Oh, you should. We have lots of great videos on TOEFL. We have, technology is not working. So TOEFL has some, E2 School has some, all of the classes have their own YouTube channel. And then of course, Jay does a ton of videos kind of in more general topics as well, speaking, pronunciation, things like that. So they're really great. All right, now is technology working? Yes. So especially if you are a free student right now, then to upgrade or purchase any package, you can have 10% off using my code Bailey10. It's good till the 17th of May, so you have 11 days left to use that. I recommend really any of the packages are great, but there are a lot of different ones. And I think the best value and the most popular is our Express Plus package. You do have a mini mock test with feedback. So you get feedback on your speaking, your writing, and it is just like the actual exam, but shorter. So it really will give you a good idea of how you'll do on your score. You'll have access to all of our live classes. So we only do one free one a week, but we actually have 4 classes every week. So you'll have access to all of them. And if you can't tune in at the specific time, you can watch them recorded as well. We have hundreds of practice questions and tests that you'll have access to. And you'll also see our super method lesson videos. And finally, once you sign up, you can also book a one-on-one tutorial, not just with me. We have a bunch of lovely tutors, but it might be with me for TOEFL, probably will be. And they really will help you improve your test scores. It's just you and me, or you and any tutor for 45 minutes. So you can ask all of your questions. It's a one-on-one tutoring session. You can ask your questions, get your answers. We typically like to focus on 2 areas between the reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So you can choose a skill or 2 to focus on, or if you just want a brief overview, we can try and go through a few more quickly. And again, it's really personalized tips. Every tutorial is different depending on your needs. So again, sign up using Bailey10. That is the end of our class today. Does anyone have any questions? No questions? Oh, of course, Mary Jean, you've had a long, busy day. Lots of speaking and pronunciation. So that will be your Thursdays for a while. Oh, good. Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Like we said, practice makes perfect, and the more exposure to it, the better. And really, it's nice to take the time out of your day to do these things. Of course, Nurcan, thank you for joining. So if you don't have any questions, then I hope to see you. So just to give you the schedule for the week, next week, Monday, we do TOEFL listening. Tuesday is TOEFL writing. Wednesday is TOEFL reading. And then every Thursday is the free TOEFL speaking. And before this, with Amber, there is the 3 o'clock, I think we're calling it the pronunciation class. I've seen it called sound workshop, but it's free. And I think you might have to go and join through E2 School. But again, E2 School is free right now. And that class is free. And her class usually lasts anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. So that's a great pronunciation class. And she actually takes volunteers and turns the microphone on so people can practice their speaking, which is really great. We can't do that on all the classes, unfortunately, but in that one, she can. All right, it's not looking like any questions tonight. So again, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you sometime next week. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.